Spilly, what's happening, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm actually driving up the I-70 West to go snowboard for my last day before I get ready for my spring training. And so as I pulled over, I'm at one of those scenic stops, and I'm looking over the beautiful Rocky Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled over to try to see if I could watch your guys' show on that. And I realized, I was like, man, you guys have really big heads. I don't know how you ever fit them into helmets.
That is true. And by the way, enjoy the scenery. Because the cynic might say it's about as good as it's going to look for the next 6 months for you. Call the Rockies games, and that's not a knock so much on the Rockies. They're a young team, but the division is awesome, man. So, I mean, where do you start? Basic components for what the Rockies need to do to be competitive this year, Spilby. What do you think?
It's always going to come down to pitching. And last year, the Rockies had the worst pitching in all of baseball. I think when you look at it, I mean, there's no way around it. You have to have a better bullpen. You have to have a better starting staff. Last year's starting staff was the worst in baseball as far as how many innings they pitched. And by comparison, the New York Mets led all of baseball with innings pitched. And you can see what that staff does. It limits the amount of opportunities that the other team gets to see your bullpen, because a lot of times, as good as bullpens have become, there's still only a couple guys in there that you really want having the rock every single night. So if your starters, like last year, again, using the Mets as an example, averaging about 6 2/3 of an inning, that means you're getting less outs using the bullpen. The Rockies, on the other side of it, were pitching about 4 2/3 of an inning using starting pitching. So that means they really heavily relied upon the bullpen, and it's just a recipe for disaster. So this year, I think Jeff Bridich, that's the Rockies' new general manager, went out and tried to make some deals. He moved around some guys. He signed a Chad Qualls, who's a journeyman relief pitcher, and a Jason Mott, similar guy, came from the St. Louis Cardinals, good pedigree, and then made a trade of this kid, Corey Dickerson, who can flat-out rake. The guy hits, traded him to Tampa Bay for Jake McGee, and another kid that maybe down the road is going to be a household name. His name is German Marquez, and that kid is a starting pitcher down the road that's going to be great.
No.
But for this Rockies team, the starting pitching that's coming up through the ranks is still coming up through the ranks. So until we see them really starting to hit Colorado and hit Denver, the starting pitching still not going to be quite up to par with the rest of the National League West.
Yeah, we might see you might start seeing from your vantage point where you're sitting right now overlooking the Rockies, some baseballs flying out of Coors Field. You know, the elephant in the room that's actually standing on the groins of management there. What is happening with Jose Reyes? And more importantly, what's the expectation of to mitigate it?
Wow, yeah, the great question. So first and foremost, that is a trial that's going to take place April 8th in Hawaii. So that's going to go through its due process, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I really appreciate what Rob Manfred did by not trying to lay down some sort of punishment prior to this case going to trial. So I appreciated that. I like the fact that he gave the Rockies a reprieve by putting Jose Reyes on what was called a leave of absence, a paid leave of absence, which to most people you're like, paid leave of absence? Well, in spring training, you just get paid meal money. And meal money is to live outside of the team hotel. So really he's getting paid like $4,000 in straight cash. So it's not like there's a big weight of the contract. But as soon as this trial goes and whatever punishment gets laid out, I'm expecting a harsh punishment if he gets found guilty. I'm expecting some sort of punishment if he is found not guilty, just because he has gone through some sort of it is still a domestic violence. So I expect some sort of repercussion for what he did in Hawaii. That being said, I think when you look at the Rockies and the shortstop position, there's a great young prospect named Trevor Story. And it's going to be interesting. To me, I think he should have been on the roster last year. I think he should have been on the team in September, but you had Jose Reyes. And I know even through the media markets and media outlets during this offseason, you heard of the story that Jose Reyes was supposed to be traded during that time to the Yankees to go play second base. I kind of expected that. I think other people in Colorado kind of expected that. That deal never went through. But if that deal had gone through, it would have been New York's problem, not Colorado's. And so now Colorado's in that unfortunate position of having to deal with this when you have a kid that's ready and ready to play in the big leagues now.